Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our Mayor, councillors, council staff and all members of the public joining us both online and here in person tonight. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed via Facebook, YouTube and the Banyule City Council website. We kindly ask that all mobile phones be switched off or placed on silent to avoid any interruptions during the meeting. We'll be going live shortly.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 3rd of August 2026 Council meeting. I open the meeting at 7 p.m. Our meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and on behalf of Banyule City Council, I would like to acknowledge them as the traditional custodians. I would also like to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung elders, past, present and emerging, and would like to acknowledge other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders joining us this evening. Our Banyule community is made up of diverse cultures, beliefs, abilities, bodies, sexualities, ages and genders. We are committed to access, equity, participation and rights for everyone. Principles which empower, foster harmony and increase the well-being of an inclusive community. I will now pass on to the Chief Executive Officer, Ms Alison Beckwith, who will read out the formalities.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome everyone to this ordinary meeting of Council. As the Mayor indicated, my name is Alison Beckwith and I'm the Chief Executive Officer here at Banyule Council. Tonight's meeting is being held in person in accordance with the governance rules and the Local Government Act 2020. The meeting is also being live streamed via Council's website and Facebook page. Live streams will be available on Council's website and YouTube page following the meeting. For those of you at home, the live stream is not interactive, so any comments or private messages directed to us while the live stream is in action will not be presented to the Council group or have any bearing on the conduct of tonight's meeting. Council's request to speak methods continue to allow residents an opportunity to participate in tonight's meeting without having to attend meetings in person. I'll just take you through some rules of our public participation during the meeting. Public question times occur at the end of tonight's meeting. If a member of the public who submitted a question is present, they are welcome to read their question as submitted or have their question read out on their behalf by a member of staff. If the submitter of the question is not present at the time, the question will not be read out. However, all public questions and their responses are included in the meeting minutes. I remind people that no statement may be derogatory, defamatory, objectable in language or directed to an individual, councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public. A 2-minute time limit does apply to all requests to speak tonight. The timer will be used and a warning will sound at the 1.5 minute mark. If the officers are reading a request to speak, they will sum up for the last 30 seconds and we ask residents to do the same. I kindly ask those of you present in the gallery to ensure your mobile phones are either switched off or on silent mode to avoid disruptions to tonight's meeting. And I also remind everyone that is present tonight that Council has a zero tolerance for any form of bullying, harassment or violence. All present tonight, those including the community, council staff and councillors, are expected to respect individual views of all others irrespective of their own views held, and allow everyone to respectfully participate in the meeting tonight. Again, I ask those in the chamber, if you are leaving the meeting while the meeting is still in progress, I ask you kindly to not hold conversations in the foyer and hold off till you're actually outside the building. This beautiful heritage listed building does have some acoustic problems. So noise does reverberate into the building and affects those listening at home. So I thank you in advance for that. I will now introduce you to the councillors in attendance tonight, and I will start to my left. Councillor Peter Castaldo, Griffin Ward, Councillor Matt Wood, Hordern Ward, and Councillor Alicia Curry, Ibbott Ward. And to my right, I have the Mayor, Councillor Alison Champion, Sherbourne Ward, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Rick Garotti, Grimshaw Ward, and Councillor Alita McKern, Charlesworth Ward. This evening, the councillors are also joined by the executive team, and over to my left I have Joseph Tobacco, Director of Community Wellbeing, and Natasha Swan, Director of City Development. And over to my right, Darren Bennett, Director of Assets and City Services, and Mark Gilio, Director of Corporate Services. The council team are also joined by the Governance and Integrity team and members of the IT team to assist in tonight's meeting. So thank you in advance for participating, and I'll hand back to you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Apologies. So this evening, I note that we have a noted apology tonight from Councillor Mary O'Kane and Councillor Mark Di Pasquale. Is anyone aware of any other apologies this evening? In other words, if you're absent, put your hand up. Okay, leave of absence. Councillors. I note that Councillor Mary O'Kane is seeking a leave of absence from Council. So it is important to note that Council must accept any reasonable request of leave under the Local Government Act 2020. Councillor O'Kane would usually be required to declare a material conflict of interest regarding this leave of absence and leave the chamber before the vote. However, she is an apology this evening, and therefore the conflict of interest is not required. So I'm seeking a motion from Council to grant Councillor Mary O'Kane a leave of absence from the 3rd of August 2026 to the 14th of August 2026 inclusive. Moved Councillor Alicia Curry, seconded by myself. I put that in motion to grant Councillor O'Kane a leave of absence. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Confirmation of the minutes for the ordinary council and special meetings of council held on the 13th of July 2026. Can I have a councillor move and second? Councillor Matt Wood, can I have a seconder? Councillor Rick Garotti. I put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried. Disclosure of interests. As required at any other meeting of council, councillors must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to, at any point throughout the meeting, if any other councillor believes that they have a conflict of interest, whether general or material, they can flag it at that point and follow the same procedure. So do we have any disclosures of conflict of interest from councillors? We do not. So a disclosure of interest for staff. Any officers who are present, if I could ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before the council meeting tonight. I want to note that the Director of City Development, Natasha Swan, is declaring a conflict of interest for item 11.1, the Boulevard, Eaglemont and Ivanhoe East proposal to place permanent barriers. So Director Swan, would you mind letting us know the nature and reason for your conflict?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a general conflict of interest on that item due to a close friendship relationship with residents who are impacted by Council's decision on this matter.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other disclosure of interest from any staff this evening? Okay, we have none. This evening, we're asking just to reorder our agenda items, so I want to go through a procedural motion for that. So the motion is that Council consents to reorder the agenda papers. So item 9.1, Youth Summit report card, is brought forward to be heard after any petition submissions, with the agenda order printed as it is to follow. So can I have a councillor move that, please? Councillor Alicia Curry, and second, Councillor Alida McKern. Can I put that in motion, please? All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. So we now, bringing forward item 9.1, Youth Summit report card, to the front of the meeting. We have a presentation for that. So I'm going to hand over to our representatives. If you go, ladies. Welcome.
Good evening, my name is Bea and I go to Ivanhoe Grammar School.
Hello, my name is Bella and I go to Our Ladies of Mercy College. We are both members of the Youth Summit representatives and we are here today to present on the Banyule Youth Summit report card.
Last year at the Banyule Youth Summit, myself and 100 other young people came together to talk about community issues that were most important to us. There was a wide variety of topics, including mental health, equal opportunities, the environment, youth futures, community safety and more. Together, we came up with a list of recommendations for Council to help address these issues.
Over the past year, Council has worked alongside young people to deliver all 39 of the recommended outcomes. Last month, on the 14th of July, we took part in the Youth Summit report card. The Youth Summit report card is an important part of the Youth Summit because it highlights all of the outcomes and achievements that have taken place because of the Youth Summit recommendations. The report card was attended by young people, youth service professionals and council staff.
It celebrated the work of young people along with the youth services team and showcased a number of events, workshops and resources that were created as a result of the Youth Summit. Young people presented on key outcomes that they had been involved in and shared the impact it had on them and the wider Banyule community. One of the outcomes that Bella and I worked on was to help young people balance their screen time. We did this by creating a new wellbeing journal for young people to help set screen time goals, find new hobbies and engage in activities that encouraged a healthy balance of using their phones.
It was a great experience to be able to share our work with the community at a Youth Summit report card. We were able to speak directly about our involvement and show the great things that can be achieved when Council works together with young people. If you would like to learn more about some of the other outcomes that were recommended, feel free to grab a copy of the Youth Summit report card booklet. We also have brought copies of the Beyond the Screen journal for you if you would like to take a copy with you.
We would like to invite you to watch a video recapping the event. Enjoy.
We're here to celebrate and support the young people of Banyule and all that they've achieved over the past year. We're excited to share some of the outcomes that have been achieved and to hear directly from the young people about their involvement and the impact these experiences have had on them personally and others in the community. And we are proud to have delivered all 39 recommendations from the 2025 Youth Summit.
We're from all different cooler nations. We decided to come together and create our own dance group.
Every conversation begins with somebody having the courage to speak up. And today, we're celebrating exactly that.
2 of us have been involved in a number of outcomes that came from the Equal Opportunities Girls Table at the Youth Summit. The purpose of the table was to give young women an opening into advocacy as well as strengthening their well-being, especially considering current events leaving young people uncertain about the future. The workshop gave me the skills, tools and language about advocacy and change making, as well as the impact of grassroots organising and how to make community level change.
Young voices need to be heard in order to achieve a future for everybody, not just some people. Young people have so much passion to affect their futures and everyone else's. Me and my fellow representatives created the Beyond the Screen Journal, a wellbeing booklet designed to help young people reduce their screen time and affect their screen usage in positive ways.
As young people, we experience the world in a way that is uniquely our own. We bring perspectives that deserve to be heard, not because they're better, but because they're different.
To do this, we've created a new podcast called It Matters to Us. The podcast launch was a powerful opportunity to hear real stories and experiences from young people in the community. The hope is that through conversations like these, future young people will not have to experience the same racism or feel alone when they do face challenges.
This report card is an important part of the process because it allows us to be accountable to our young people who take the time to attend the summit and share their ideas and their recommendations.
Young people are the future voices and the future leaders.
It allows a great representation of everyone and the greater population. So I was a part of the podcast and I was a part of the youth advocacy workshop, and I think it was such an amazing opportunity to actually this time around be involved in those outcomes, and to have 39 outcomes worked on has been really amazing to see.
Looking at everything that you have achieved, I am so optimistic and excited about what the future holds for the young people in Banyule and for Banyule as a whole.
We want to thank you and commend you all for being here today and for helping turn young people's visions into real, noticeable and meaningful change.
Okay. Just before we move on to our speakers, does any councillor have any questions at all for our youth leaders? Councillor Rigg.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I do. Terrific presentation, by the way, and thank you very much. And we did give a bit of a heads up on this at the dinner, but if there was one key message or one key takeaway for council that you would like to relay to us tonight, through you, Mayor, would you be happy to approach the lectern and tell that to us as a council? Thank you, Mayor.
It's that as young people, I'm sure I'm not just speaking for myself here, but for all of the students and all of the young people in Banyule, we all have something to say and we would all like to be heard. There are many events and many opportunities that Banyule presents for us, but the reach is not as far as it should be. It doesn't reach the full demographic of young people across Banyule. There are so many people that I know personally who want to make change and have voices that need to be heard, but they're not aware of these opportunities. And if they did know of them, they would be here. They might be sitting here today. They might join at the Youth Summit. And I think that it's so important that all of these opportunities are advertised in a way that reaches everybody, not just those who are already involved in leadership or already interested in leadership. There are some people who are afraid and they might need that extra bit of courage and that extra push, and it is so important that everyone is given a chance to receive it. Thank you.
Along with what Bea said, I think that it's really important that not only are young people not always aware of these opportunities, but I don't think young people are fully aware of their own leadership potential themselves. I think if people are giving more chance to express their confidence and courage to pursue these opportunities in themselves, they can recognise their own leadership potential and recognise their ability to make change within the community. So I think having more initiatives surrounding uplifting individuals themselves to make positive change will inspire them to become future leaders. So thank you.
Well done, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Did any other councillor have a question at all? I'm going to go with a no. We do have two speakers on this item. Logan Farrell from Greensborough will address the council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Welcome, Logan. Nice to see you again. You have 2 minutes.
I am supportive of this report and the Youth Summit as a whole. Youth services in Banyule are incredible, and I'm immensely grateful to the team at Jets that do work every day to assist and aid youth like myself who use their services. Young people are uniquely unrepresented in our political system. Most of us are subject to legislation that we do not get a say in or a vote in, and naturally that comes with a feeling of helplessness. There are some avenues available for our advocacy, but with most of them, they come with caveats and difficulties. And most of that just makes engagement tiring. After all of that effort, most of our advice just ends up being inconclusive to the judgment being made. That's why I urge Council to consider forming a formal youth council. It would hit many birds with a single stone, would provide year-round advisory to Council on youth issues in Banyule. It would step in to resolve part of the disinterest that youth are facing in politics. And it would give real, formal and tangible skills and experience to up-and-coming legislators and lawmakers homegrown right here in Banyule. Most of all, it would actually provide Council with an accurate representation and picture of what youth in Banyule expect from the local government of the place that they grow and live in. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Logan. Jai Sanford from Heidelberg Heights will address the Council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Welcome, Jai. Nice to see you again. You have 2 minutes.
Thanks very much. I want to start by saying the Youth Summit is a great program, and there's a lot in this report card that is worth recognising. The youth services team and the young people involved have done such an amazing job and have clearly put real work into responding to the recommendations and turning many of those ideas into real programs. But one event every 2 years does not mean Council was good at involving young people in its normal decision making. Looking around the Council table and the room today, bar the front, would young people really see themselves represented in the decisions being made here? I'm regularly half the age of people at Council meetings and often one of the only people here anywhere near my age. That says more about how Council engages with young people than whether young people care. Young people do care about the world around them. This room just does not make many young people feel welcome, taken seriously, or capable of changing anything. I understand Banyule already has 8 Youth Summit representatives who meet monthly with Council staff, and that is a very positive step. But they all come through schools. If you have left school, are homeschooled, studying at TAFE or university, working, looking for work, or simply aged between 18 and 24 like me, there is no clear pathway to participate as a young person who isn't in high school. Young adulthood is when people begin renting, working, studying, and accessing Council services differently, and those voices deserve to be heard too. Young people are also constantly spoken about, usually negatively. We hear endless rhetoric about a youth crime crisis, even though youth offending has been falling nationally and in Victoria for years. Banyule needs a youth council, or at least a more inclusive youth advisory body. Otherwise, Council will continue hearing mainly from young people already connected to formal structures, or missing those whose voices are least heard and often most important to include. And I want to say great work to the young representatives here as well.
Great, thank you so much, Jai. Councillors, before we move to the motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? Councillor Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Some great topics being discussed here. Can I put to the appropriate officer through you, Mayor? What have we done in the past about consideration for a permanent youth council as described by a couple of our speakers now?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Quite a number of things, to be perfectly frank. So in addition to the Youth Summit, which as rightly pointed out by the speaker today, occurs every second year with the Summit report card happening in the alternate year, there's a number of actions which often talk to active participation in decision-making and influencing Council. That is a standard repertoire of organisational business and programs which we run. And certainly there have been conversations with members of our youth in Banyule in relation to the establishment of a formal youth council. Unfortunately, those discussions have not been met with enthusiasm. So the questions have been posed by officers with young people, but it hasn't been met with quite the level of a response that would justify pursuing it and taking it to the next level.
Thank you, Director. Anyone with a question? Another question for officers? That'll be me. That's my turn. I've got a question. To the appropriate Director, just hearing one of our speakers comment regarding where this information and feedback goes? Where does it end up? So we've got our Youth Summit, we've got our 39 recommendations. What happens?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. So the report card which is presented to Council tonight is just a summary of some of the actions which have been implemented. A lot of those actions do become standard operational delivery of Council, and so our youth services team, both through JETS and also their outreach work, because the outreach service in particular connects with people who may not necessarily be connected to a standard structured educational environment. So a lot of the actions that are taken by the team do reflect the sentiment that's put forward by members of, the participants rather, of the Youth Summit process. We're obviously transparent in terms of how we report these things, and we're always looking for feedback and trying to modernise and keep pace with the most contemporary way of delivering services for youth.
Thank you very much, Director. All right. I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Rick Garotti. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Peter Castaldo. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Councillor Peter Castaldo. Okay, Councillor Rick is the mover. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to make a couple of words. Very happy to be moving this. It was a real privilege this evening just to catch up with two of our leaders, 2 of 8 of our representatives arising from the Youth Summit, and just to talk to them and engage with them, just to realise, I suppose, the talent and the ability and the knowledge and capability that we have within our city and amongst our youth. And 2 very incredible and bright and talented women who joined us for dinner, and very grateful for their time and for the way that they presented the work of a collective group of young people here this evening. I think you did them tremendous justice and would have made them proud. So thank you for that. What was interesting is that with the question I posed of our 2 youth representatives in terms of where we can do better as a council and what is required, in a sense almost mirrored a little bit of the feedback from our 2 other speakers, which is getting out to those youth and to those people who are not connected at the moment. People, for example, who are homeschooled. People, for example, who have dropped out of our school system. People who have moved on from school but are still youth and engaging in services. So I think for me, a takeout in adopting this report is for us as a council to say, how can we take that message and run with it from our 2 youth representatives and our 2 speakers? How do we get the message out there? How do we promote it better? So I'm very grateful for that feedback. And I think you can have our assurance as a council that we will take that forward and run with it. I know that our 2 youth representatives, together with the other 6, will be actively involved in planning for the next Youth Summit that will be occurring next year. For me, what would be interesting, and I would like to just put a couple of ideas to the youth around, we've often heard around climate change and gender issues, schooling, education as big issues for the youth. But I would be particularly interested to hear from our youth around the challenges of AI, as an example. How are our youth feeling about that and what we can do? And the challenges that are around our economy and our business, and the fact that there are significant challenges in the state at the moment. And how do the young people feel about that, and what responsibility do they want us to take to try and fix that? So with that, I'm highly enthusiastic around commending this report. And again, I'd like to thank our 2 youth representatives here tonight, as well as our 2 other speakers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Peter Castaldo, would you like to speak to the item as the seconder?
Yeah, I'd also like to congratulate the 2 speakers this evening and everyone that played a role in putting together the forum and also the work that followed. We've got a number of officers here that work very hard, and I see them at all of the events that we have as an integral part of our youth engagement across Banyule. So thank you all for that. It's always very exciting to turn up to a place where so many people are excited to be where they are and to share their ideas and to have that conversation. And I think it'd be nice to see that sort of energy in a lot of the other activities we do with council when we do consultation as well. It's not always as positive and constructive. So it's a great learning that we as councillors can take from that environment to try and bring that to other parts of our work. And I look forward to the next summit. This time, the online spaces was a new sort of category that I hadn't seen there, and a new subject. It's always interesting to see what comes new from each of these cycles. And so I think the number of categories are a bit larger than normal this time. So I think it's really good to see we continue to push into areas that are new, and perhaps AI is one of those growing ones for the next one. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and well done, ladies. That was really great. I remember being inspired at the summit by those that were involved, and sitting at the tables was quite profound, and it's continued on through this. My colleagues have said it, but you've done yourselves proud. Your schools, your families will be exceptionally proud of you, so well done. This is one body of work. We do a lot. We cover a lot. This is one body of work I really love. And for the reasons that have been stated, I often find myself, I've got 2 young ladies at home myself, and I often find myself considering different items. How will they be with this now and into the future? That's what really matters. And our last 2 speakers, Logan and Jai, some of those matters that you brought up, you know, they landed with me. The idea of getting our youth better engaged, albeit there's some challenges that we've heard tonight, is something that we've just got to really focus on. And so going into the summit next year, I'm going to be asking the officers for us to be a little bit more involved in it. Felt like I only just saw the surface of it. So I'm, as I said before, I'm inspired and I'm encouraged by all the work here. So well done to everybody involved. Really great.
Thank you, Councillor. Would any other councillor? Councillor Alicia.
Thanks, Mayor. Congratulations to the young women who represented your cohort of the youth very well. As we're saying, the Youth Summit report is, the Youth Summit comes every 2 years, and I was lucky enough to attend in 2025 to see 100 young people come together and explore a range of topics. Some of those very challenging topics, including community safety, cultural inclusion, mental health, climate action, social connection. And accumulating in all of that work, we got to this stage, which I know is what you're talking about. You should be so proud of this document, and thanks to all the officers that had input into getting us to this stage. What I've got to say is that I think all of the speakers that I heard from last year to right here this evening is very impressive. So the promise of our future leaders is very evident. The confidence, the clarity, the nature of how you speak and present yourselves, very impressive. And I do take on that, yes, there's always some other step that we need to take, some other improvement, and how our formal structures still manage to engage those informal scenarios and people that don't necessarily fit into the mould. So some of those common messages across the themes, I found that there was across the board include connection, the ability to participate without prejudice, and the creation of opportunities. So I've taken on those messages. I'll take home the copy to read it in detail. Feel free to reach out as new ideas come to you, and I look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor. Any other councillor like to speak? Say a few words. Thanks, Selena.
Yes, I'd also like to extend my congratulations to the group, especially the 2 speakers tonight. You demonstrated a lot of natural speaking ability, which is great for a young age because it can take a while to be proficient at public speaking. I also note that you're both, one of you is from a private school, one of you is from a private Catholic school. So I do wonder just what assistance you're given to through your education that might also help with your confidence. I'm interested in, as my colleague Councillor Garotti mentioned, how we reach young people across the board, those who don't perhaps have the same opportunities that might be presented to students in schools where those opportunities exist. So, and that also goes for within your schools. I don't know whether the two of you actually have leadership positions in the school that has perhaps been an open door for an invitation to be involved, because I know in schools there are students who don't feel engaged, who don't feel, regardless of the school they're at, that their voice is not being heard and that they don't even try. So actually capturing a greater proportion of student voices, not only those students who are selected for leadership roles in their schools, but the other students who somehow miss out. But they have an opinion. They may not be as proficient as expressing that opinion, but that doesn't mean they're not thinking about it. So I'd like to see that, and I'd like to see more gender balance in representation. Lovely to see two ladies speaking here tonight, but half the population is made up of men and other genders, and it would be good to see more of a balance there. So congratulations, all the best for the future, and yes, look forward to learning more about the next group next year and what they achieve. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Talking of genders, I think it's my turn. Excellent, it's my turn. We have two young men who spoke to the item. So maybe the two young ladies and the two young men could do some networking. There you go. I feel a network coming on. All right. I would just like to add very briefly, the first time I had an opportunity to speak at council, I didn't take it. I was absolutely mortified, and I let my ward councillor, former councillor Steve Briffer, speak on my behalf. So you are well ahead of me. So well done. Congratulations on your confidence and for speaking and for all that you do for our youth as well. Thank you to our team for all their work. We love working with you. Thank you for your work as well. And I am going to let everybody know that Youth Fest is on Sunday, the 20th of September from 12 till 5 at McLeod Park. We want to see you all there. It'll be great. All right, I'm going to put that in motion. All those in... Oh, actually, sorry, Councillor Rick, as the mover, would you like a right of reply?
No, but I will just let our young people know that you're welcome to leave after this item if you wish. Thank you, Mayor.
It's okay. All right, now I'll put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Okay. As per the procedural motion for reordering the agenda items, we will now revert to hearing the agenda items as printed. So we're going back to item 8.1. Okay, so item 8.1, preliminary financial results. We have one speaker on this item. Kavan Hill from Banyule Ratepayers Action Group will address the council in person and is speaking against the recommendation. Welcome, Kavan. Thank you for joining us this evening. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Councillors and Chief Executive. 2 matters. First, capital delivery. Council spent $53.934 million against a total approved program of $78.558 million, 69%. Carry forward into this year was $2.769 million. Carry forward out is $12.087 million, 4.5 times higher in 12 months. 4.5 times higher in 12 months. This is not costless. Council's own capital replacement ratio fell from a budget of 2.85 to 2.09. The renewal gap fell from 2.29 to 1.74, below target. As attachment 8.1.3 concedes, ratepayers funded asset renewal that was not delivered while the cash sat on deposit, earning 4.83%. Table 9 does not reconcile. This is only an arithmetic issue. It's not having a go at anybody. The March column foots the preliminary column. Leaves a $450,000 gap, and a $12.087 million appears twice, once as carry forward, once as estimated unspent. Now, that's my cursory take on it. I did raise the question. I've queried it. I hope it is right, but if it's not, I can talk differently. Attachment 8.11 shows an approved budget of 78.558 million. Attachment 8.1.2 shows 80.344 million. Second, I want to talk about productivity. Employee costs were 87.652 million, 1.24 million over budget, while full-time equivalent staff ran 10.06 below budget, and while council ceased or reduced 4 services. Agency costs were 1.989 million against a budget of 805,000, 147% over. Fewer staff, fewer services, higher cost.
Turning that on, thanks very much for joining us this evening. We've got no speakers to this item, so councillors, before we move to the motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? Councillor Rick, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Mr Hill has raised a couple of very pertinent questions, and I'm just wondering if, through you, the appropriate officer could respond to a few of those, if possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Mark.
Thank you, through you, Mayor, and thank you for taking the time to go through the preliminary financial report results in such detail. Probably the main thing is important to note that these figures are preliminary financial results and were estimates back on the 13th of July of this year. And as part of the year-end financial reporting process, a number of adjustments and reconciliations will occur, the final accounts before they get audited by the Victorian Auditor General's Office. The ones that you highlighted, I think I can address right now is there certainly is a number error in the additions. The figures that are there are correct based on the 13th of July, but certainly that the additions aren't correct. You also highlighted the one around the Capital Works program and the difference between the attachment and also the statement of Capital Works. That's fundamentally a timing difference in the Capital Works attachment. It includes the labour cost of Capital Works of 1.75 million, which it will be operationalised when we do that final reconciliation, as well as other maintenance costs which were classified in the capital program but will be part of the operating accounts when the reconciliation is completed. So thanks again for your time for going through in detail.
Thanks very much, Director. Does any councillor have any other question for the appropriate officer? Okay, we have a report before us set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Rick. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Matt. So Councillor Rick is the mover. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Happy to make a couple of comments. And also I do want to thank our speaker, Mr Hill, because that layer of review from the community is always appreciated. And particularly if errors have been identified, just a calculatory error has been picked up, that's appreciated. And we're not defensive about that as a council. We welcome that engagement, and I think the community appreciates the fact that we hear that feedback and we work better together for it. I think the figures reflect well on council, and we do end the year in a reasonably good position, noting, as the directors pointed out, that it is subject to audit finalisation. The speaker touched on something that also resonated with me around our employee cost being $1.24 million over. And that is an area of concern and something that I no doubt would appreciate that our CEO and our CFO or Director of Corporate Services will be tackling. But, a $1.2 million overrun, breaking that down, $500,000 because of unforeseen higher additional costs, $500,000 for premium agency costs. So agency was $2 million for the year, and agency's about a 25% premium. And then $0.6 million on work cover, which has an offset with income. But we've given continue to have a very robust conversation around agency as a council. And although I'm a bit disappointed with the result, particularly compared to budget, we did receive a report, a people and culture report, that shows over the last 4 years agency costs have halved. So they were tracking at about $4 to $5 million a year, and the organisations brought them down to just under $2 million this year. I would like to see that reduced further, but I think I'm reminded of the saying, progress, not perfection. And so the officers have responded to previous direction that this council has given around getting on top of agency, and we're heading in the right direction. But when I reflect on these figures, I would be saying to our CEO and to our Director of Corporate Services, that is an area that we need to continue to focus on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder, Matt, would you like to speak to the item? Okay, would any other councillor like to speak to the item? Okay, I'm going to put that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 8.2, proposed council meeting dates. There are no speakers on this item. Does any councillor have any question of officers before we move to the motion? There are none. We have a report before us set out in the papers. I'm calling for a motion. Could I have a mover for this item, please? Councillor Alicia Curry, could I have a seconder? I'll second. Councillor Alison Champion. Alicia, would you like to speak? I don't want to speak either. Does anyone else want to speak? I'm putting that in motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 8.3, Beale Ward by-election update. We have one speaker on this item. So David Mulholland from Banyule Ratepayers Action Group will address council in person and is speaking for the recommendation. Welcome, David. Nice to see you. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to speak on this important matter. Firstly, Bragg would like to acknowledge and thank former Councillor Elizabeth Neely for her service to Banyule City Council and the Beale Ward. It is important to note that ex-Councillor Neely has advised that she has resigned for personal reasons and not to run as a candidate in the state election. This report advises that the Beale Ward by-election will cost Banyule ratepayers approximately $180,000, even after Council has achieved savings by providing its own premises for the VEC's election office. Ratepayers rightly expect elections to be conducted not only fairly, but also efficiently and at the lowest reasonable cost. Victoria currently relies on a single provider, the Victorian Electoral Commission, to conduct local government elections. While the VEC performs an important role, Bragg believes there is merit in considering whether appropriately accredited electoral providers would compete to conduct such elections. Competition has the potential to improve efficiency, encourage innovation and reduce costs, while maintaining strict standards of electoral integrity. Voters and candidates deserve an electoral system that is affordable, transparent, fair and capable of dealing effectively with electoral misconduct. Bragg therefore believes that the Victorian Government should review both the cost of conducting local government elections and the effectiveness of the current enforcement framework, particularly relating to the printing, publishing or distribution of defamatory material. Finally, Bragg wishes all candidates contesting the Beale Ward by-election well and hopes that this election is conducted in a manner that upholds the highest standards of electoral integrity, fairness and democratic principles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. That's very kind. Okay. So, councillors, before we move the motion, does any councillor have a question of officers? Councillor Alicia Curry.
Thanks, Mayor. Just to the appropriate officer or potentially the CEO, is what's council's role in the upcoming election and the guidance on who's actually running the election process, even though council has put forward the venue?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. So the Victorian Electoral Commission are, as rightly pointed out by David, the statutory provider that's commissioned under the legislation of the Local Government Act to run all of the elections. Council's role is to support the implementation of the election and to ensure that we provide hand-on-hand support throughout the process, providing information to candidates, providing information and relevant information to voters, updating the voter roll. And of course, working with them to provide them with the electoral office. We respond to queries and questions and work together in a complaint handling matrix to ensure that the right complaints are triaged to the relevant departments as well. So from a statutory perspective, it is the VEC. Council's role is really to ensure that council are operating with high integrity, that our staff and councillors are aware of their obligations under the election period policy and associated guidance material, and that council remain apolitical and neutral throughout the Beale Ward by-election process.
Thank you very much. You had a second question,
Yes,
Councillor
thanks.
Alicia. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a clarification on, I think the Speaker was talking about potential for behavioural issues of candidates. Who should those complaints or submissions be made to? Thanks.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Any concerns around collateral on council land, such as call flutes and the like, need to be directed to council, to our municipal laws team, who will manage it in accordance with the activities on council land guidelines. For any concerns around disinformation or misinformation or candidates providing electoral matter that doesn't have authorisation, then the correct complaint handling body would be the Victorian Electoral Commission and the Inspectorate. But if you refer to the report, there is a table there in a matrix that steps out the appropriate body and who would respond to what, which provides guidance essentially on that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question, Councillor? No. Any other councillor have a question for the appropriate officer? Okay. So I'm now calling for a motion. Do I have a mover for this item? Councillor Rick, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Alicia Curry. Councillor Rick, would you like to speak to the item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just two brief comments I'd like to make. One, for any prospective candidates and who may be here tonight or listening in from home, please feel free to reach out to our Chief Executive Officer. I think she is making herself available to talk to all candidates, and I'd highly encourage that. Just potentially to understand exactly what you're getting into if should you choose to run. Really valuable conversation. The second point I would make is that I actually agree with the Speaker around the cost of the election. Unfortunately, Council is obligated legally to utilise the VEC. Across the sector, there have been a number of by-elections, and I was going to ask our governance manager for a figure on that, but I forgot to. I note that we do have a candidate for state government office in attendance this evening. Mr. Lopez, thank you for your attendance this evening. And perhaps that's something that could be taken on because if councils did have the opportunity to select an alternative election provider and they went through all the due diligence and met requirements and were lower cost, that would be of benefit to us and to ratepayers, and particularly given the number of by-elections we've seen across the sector. So good suggestion from our Speaker, and I would commend that to our candidate for office. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rick. Could the seconder, Councillor Alicia, would you like to speak to the item?
Thank you. Just very briefly, this unexpected by-election has put quite a lot of pressure on our CEO and our staff, so I would like to acknowledge that the time frame that has been presented for us to turn this around was really pressing. And the documentation and the guidance that councils have received and that council has put out for prospective candidates is pretty impressive. So I thank you for that work in a short time frame, and we hope that it goes smoothly for that election on the 3rd of October. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Peter.
Yeah, I was shocked when I heard the price that democracy has to do a little process like this. But we've already had significant conversations with officers around governance and everything else.